It turns out the Japanese newspapers are reporting that, and TEPCO admits that they knew that 16 hours after earthquake was the first meltdown. Since then, they've admitted at 5 of the reactors, explosions, fires, partial meltdowns, some of the cores 70% exposed, others that have broken out of the chambers and fully melted into the earth. More explosions, more fires, more smoke. And you've got to go to the local Japanese news to even find it and watch the webcams. It's not even news here in the United States. Meanwhile, they've raised the levels of what they say is normal or safe. And some isotopes, the FDA, EPA has raised it 1,000 times what it previously was. One isotope, 100,000, others 25,000. We've gone through and listed off the EPA's websites, the main one, what they've done. The only reporting we're getting is from states, and this was a month ago, 181 times safe levels of radioactive iodine, 300 times radioactive nickel. I mean, we've gone over the state reports, and the feds, their answer is just say, you know what? You could have 100,000 times what we previously said. It's magic. And it shows a major change in the way these systems operate. And that's what Dr. Busby, I mean, I've got to give him credit. He really didn't stick his neck out. He did the research, but some said he did at the time. When he went public worldwide and said, look, this is already bigger than Chernobyl. We're talking a week or two in, month and a half ago. He went public and said there has been nuclear explosions, atomic explosions there, and he gave examples of where that's happened before in Russia, and the isotope readings and top scientists he's interviewed. He then said this is how they will counter it. They will simply raise what they say is safe because what they already say is safe isn't safe from all the studies. And then he talked about infertility exploding and that perhaps is really what they're after. Dr. Busby is a British scientist known for his theories about the negative health effects, his theories, of very low-dose ionizing radiation. This is what Wikipedia says. Busby is the director of Green Audit Environmental Consultancy Agency and scientific advisor to the Low-Level Radiation Campaign, LLRC.org. And he also advises the BBC and others. He obtained his BS in chemistry with a first-class honors from the University of London and then did research at the Wellcome Foundation applying spectrographic and analytical methods to chemical pharmacology and molecular drug interactions. He became an elected member of the Royal Society of Chemistry. He later gained the Ph.D. in chemical physics. So he's a chemical physicist at the University of Kent researching Raman spectroelectrochemistry. And he joins us, LLRC.org, has all the documents. But you've been proven right in spades. They're now saying many times worse, may melt down for years, building a big tent, trying to contain it. But it's not even, and you predicted what they would do, raising what they say is safe, even though their head scientist quit, the advisor to the president and prime minister, and said they're telling kids 12 miles away to keep living there. And but Dr. Busby, there's the intro preface. You've been absolutely right. So break it down and tell us where we're going. I mean, next they may say uranium should be an additive in cereal to fortify children's bones.
Oh dear, it's all quite bizarre. I agree with you. Well, of course, it's, as you say, reactor 1 melted down, and this is now accepted, and it had melted down on day 2. Of course, they're still not really telling you what's happening, and we do know now from measurements and from analysis of videos and the isotopic ratios and all of these things that we can look at, which are published thanks to the internet and all the people who are doing these measurements and releasing this stuff. We know pretty well now what's happening. What's happened is that there have been a number of nuclear explosions, what you call atomic explosions. We know this from the isotopic ratios of substances which have been measured in the air. We know even now that some of these very exotic isotopes, which have very, very short half-lives, could not possibly exist in detector systems in America or in Japan or even in Europe if it were not for the fact that there was ongoing fission taking place. So there's very, very hot fuel which is fissioning, and we see videos. A lady sent me a video recently of puffs of smoke coming out of these reactors. And now these puffs of smoke are a consequence of if you like, fizzles, if you'd like to call them that. But nevertheless, these are fissioning events and will be producing smoke, which is particles. I mean, when you see a bonfire and you see the blue smoke from a bonfire, what you're looking at is carbon particles. And this grey smoke and blue smoke and black smoke that comes out of these reactors are particles. Now, one of the most serious events which occurred in Reactor 3 about on the 21st, about a week after and it wasn't reported except in terms of white smoke. The IAEA said there's white smoke coming out of reactor building. And shortly after that, we tracked this using plume modeling down through to Tokyo and found there was a sharp increase in radiation, and the radiation stayed high. So in other words, it was something that came there and stayed there. And we now know that at least with it was a great deal of cesium-137, which is on the ground in Tokyo and even to the south of Tokyo. So it's really a massively dangerous event, and there's been a massive cover-up, and that cover-up is still going on. These particles are traveling all around the globe. They've certainly been picked up in Europe, and they will contain alpha-emitting particles, uranium and plutonium, and all the fission products associated with those, connected with those particles.
And not everyone will get hit by one, but if you inhale one, you're a dead duck, according to the nuclear physicist and radiation doctors, scientists we've had on, that you absorb one of these with uranium or plutonium and say into your lungs, lung cancer is coming within a few years to a decade. It's just incredible, and it's not even in the news now. But the states that are studying milk in Vermont and on the east coast of the U.S. and other states over a month ago picked up all sorts of deadly isotopes, but everybody's just frolicking around, dancing, and saying everything's fine.
Well, the trouble is you can't see this stuff, and if you look at the videos of people who drive into the exclusion zone around Fukushima, it looks perfectly normal. You have a few dogs walking about, wagging their tails and so on. I mean, you can't see anything at all. But if you could see something, say if this stuff was sparkling, or if it was fluorescent or something, it would be quite terrifying. You'd be walking into a sort of radioactive inferno of colour. I think that they have to now, as a sort of in some kind of global way, provide enough resources to put something over the top of this and keep it all in. There has to be some containment. It's no longer possible to just leave it and keep raising the limits.
What about megatons of concrete instead of a tent? What about building a literal pyramid of concrete on top of those?
Yeah, I think the problem there is that you have to isolate it in some way. So you have to cool it, you see, or the reactions will get worse. And you can't stop a nuclear reaction by just covering it up with concrete, because of course you've got the earth underneath it and the groundwater, so it will just produce an awful lot of stuff which will just then leak out into the ocean. So my feeling is that they have to provide some kind of enclosure over the top of it and continue to cool it, and then also they can camp shed. They can put some sort of controlling caissons down around it, and to sort of limit the ability of this stuff to get out.
But as they admit, it's so radioactive, they keep pulling the people out, and now it's very secretive. They're restricting media, and so we have no idea even really what they're doing.
I agree with you. It's a nightmare. And I mean, I wish I could say do this, do that, or do the other. I wish I could have some kind of positive suggestion that might be useful. I don't really. It is out of control. And the idea that the Japanese government are somehow going to take 9 months to control it just leaves me falling about laughing. This is a global catastrophe, and I don't have any answers. But I tell you one thing that I can say, and that is that the risk model that's currently being used in order to advise people about how much radiation they can be exposed to, like you said, that is being increased all the time. That is completely wrong. That these people are going to suffer horribly as a result of their exposures. And if they don't get away from where they are now, at least outside the 200-kilometer zone, and certainly other parts of the country where this stuff has appeared sporadically, because that's how it works. It's a bit of a patchy business. We found it south of Tokyo, incidentally. Then there are going to be an awful lot of deaths, and I think that it's criminally irresponsible of these people to just bolster up the continued idea to have a nuclear future at the expense of the lives of these people.
Well, that was my next point. That was my next point. And then I want to get into the model, because that's the big hoax and cover-up here. But just a month or so ago, it was like, oh, they're going to cancel the reactors, the new ones in the U.S. Oh, we're going to look at these dangerous designs. And now it's almost like, well, that's over with. See, it's not a big deal when they blow up. Let's build more. It's kind of fun to have one blow up in your country. George Monbiot, using psychological warfare, says it's liberal and good. This makes me want it. And people say, well, that sounds crazy. No, they realize that a lot of the public now just goes off how you act. So if you dance around and say, I have cyanide pills, people will line up and take them.
I think you're absolutely right. I think there is some kind of magical process taking place here, where akin to the emperor's new clothes, if you recall, they're presenting something which is balmy, and people are swallowing it merely because it's being presented again and again and again and again like some sort of cracked record. And of course, they're not telling us the truth about these materials that are coming out, and they're not even releasing the results of measurements in Europe anymore. We're having to use Freedom of Information Act and questions in Parliament to try and get out the data to see what's happening over here, or even make the measurements ourselves. It's a cover-up. It's a scary business. It's a scary business. But I mean, it's not the only cover-up. I mean, the world at the moment is in a very bizarre state altogether, not just from the point of view of Fukushima.
No, we've now had leaks in Canada and in the U.S., and now because of Fukushima, it's not even an event. And they say, yeah, we released all this radiation in the lake. Keep eating the fish. It's fine. It's almost like it's gotten to the point now where it's passé, and I mean, society's really gotten in a trance-like state. Dr. Busby, break down the models, because as you said a month and a half ago here, you said the model of what they say is safe isn't safe, but you watch, they'll raise the levels. And so even if we go by their old model that, okay, this is a safe level, how can they then get away with saying, well, now we're going to raise what is safe? I mean, that is just on its face utterly asinine, but they're doing it.
Well, this is how they do it. The model is based, that they use, is based on external radiation, microsieverts per hour, if you like, or overall dose. So you know, if you have like 10 hours, it's 10 microsieverts. And the model is based on the survivors of the Hiroshima bomb. So what they do is they say that the Hiroshima bomb survivors received so many sieverts of radiation, which is like a huge dose. And then we followed them for most of their life, and we found this number of cancers. So we say that this number of sieverts produces that number of cancers. The problem is that that's an external radiation model, and it's okay for external radiation, probably. Actually, probably isn't, but anyway, it's roughly right. And if it weren't right, then people who had X-rays in hospitals or people living in high background regions of the world suffering external radiation would have much higher levels of cancer than they do. So we don't have a problem with that. The problem is this, that for internal radionuclides, for these particles that we're talking about, the amount of dose that you get to certain parts of your body and not other parts, so in other words, it's what we call anisotropic. So it produces a huge dose at one point, but no dose somewhere else. It's a bit like sitting in front of a fire and warming yourself and getting a dose. Dose is defined in terms of energy per unit mass, so joules per kilogram. Or else you get the same amount of energy per unit mass by reaching into the fire and picking out a hot coal and eating it. And this is the error that's been built into this model that they're using, because it doesn't deal with the fact that internal radionuclides can either come in the form of particles and produce huge doses at the point where the particle is and no dose somewhere else, or else they can actually bind to DNA. And there are a number of these molecules, a number of these atoms like strontium and uranium, plutonium, which actually have a very high affinity for DNA. So when they come into your body, when you inhale them and they get into the bloodstream, through the lungs, through the lymphatic system, what they do is they bind to the DNA in the cells, and so they deliver all their energy directly to the DNA, you see. And so that's like targeting it. It's like targeting the very organ or organelle or system.
Well, that's like saying
the origin of the cancer.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what Dr. Doug Rockey, who was the head of the Pentagon's radiation study program with DU, explains, is that it's the inhaling of it, and then it just sits there at point-blank range for the rest of your life, frying the cells around it, and you get a cancer right there. And they're just saying, it's fine, it's wonderful, 100,000 times levels better. We'll be watching you, globalist. They knew day one. Within the second day that there'd been a total meltdown, they know there's been all sorts of fission going on. I've seen them admit that, and the way Dr. Busby describes it, and other physicists we've talked to, that there are these little atomic explosions. Then you can get a really big one. Then you saw the Mach 3 reactor blow up on that Wednesday after and shoot fuel rods high in the sky. Later, the Japanese admitted, yeah, hundreds of thousands of them got blown up to 1.5 miles away. The Japanese just buried them with bulldozers. I mean, Dr. Busby, there's no doubt this dwarfs Chernobyl, correct?
Yes, correct. There's no doubt that it dwarfs Chernobyl, and the cancer yield from this is going to be greater than the cancer yield from Chernobyl. Chernobyl was at least 1 million people, and we're going to have a larger number than this.
And I guess the nuclear industry is hoping we just forget about it so they can build more of these things. When you got cut off by the break, you were explaining what these radioactive particles do when they get in the lungs or other tissue.
Yeah, I was describing the effect of a particle which we have actually discovered and identified from Fukushima in an air filter. It's a particle containing the isotope americium-241, which is an alpha emitter, and this substance, this particular particle, has a diameter of about about 5 microns. So it's effectively a gas. It can pass through the lungs into tissue, and when it gets in the body, this particular particle has sufficient activity, it's about some gigabecquerels per kilogram, that it will shoot out 1 alpha particle every second. It's got an activity about 1.5 becquerels for the particle. Now what that means is that each one of these alpha tracks will go into tissue, 3 or 4 cells that are local to the particle, because the alpha tracks don't travel very far. So the dose to those cells
did we just lose Dr. Busby? That was weird. Let's get him back on the line. We'll do 5 minutes overdrive if we have to. We've got to get his testimony on record here. Folks, this guy's been 100% on target. I mean, I was having him on a month and a half ago, and he was laying all of this out, and people are like, oh, there hadn't been multiple meltdowns. Oh, there's no problem. And now it's all admitted. In fact, it's worse than we had said. TEPCO's admitting it. Weeks ago, the head advisor to the Japanese government quit, saying it's immoral to have kids still in the area. We'll have to hold Dr. Busby 5 minutes of the next hour. Doc, you got cut off. You were breaking down how many particles how many particles this thing shoots out.
I don't know how many particles. There'll be certainly. I mean, I haven't done the calculation. We don't.
You're saying every second it's firing something.
Billions of these particles, more than billions of these particles. I think probably there's going to be at least 1 million of these particles for every single person in the 200-kilometer area, to guess. So there's an awful lot of particles. My point about the particles is that when they get inside you, they produce a dose to the local tissue which is higher than the dose that they would have got in the Hiroshima explosion in terms of external radiation. But the point is that the current risk model deals with these particles as if they are external radiation, and so they would say the dose is too low to affect you. And this is the particular scam that is being used to allow people to be exposed to these sorts of external radiation, these sort of internal radiation exposures from Fukushima. It's dreadful. It's terrifying.
What's the danger of these reaching, say, Texas? My little children,
Yes, there is a danger of them reaching Texas. I mean, this stuff will go around the globe unless it's contained. Even now it already is probably in Texas. But of course, the probability that they inhale it will be proportional to the number of particles per cubic meter, and that will be a lot less in Texas than it is in Japan.
Dr. Busby.
We've certainly found these in Hawaii.
No, I hear you. We got a break. Stay there. We'll be back in 1 minute. Dr. Chris Busby, who has been 100% dead on. In fact, if he's wrong, it's that it was even worse than he said. And he predicted everything they would do. He predicted exactly what would continue to happen. He said just a few weeks into it, this thing could go for a year or more. A month later, they came out, and TEPCO now admits it. And we were talking about these particles, and yes, Texas, basically every state that's tested has found elevated levels of different isotopes in milk, in surface produce like cabbage and lettuce and things like spinach. And I've seen it as reports of 500 times safe levels of certain isotopes. And the feds are releasing no data. That's real evidence of the cover-up. I mean, we knew a week into it when the U.S. military, crawling all over that area with high-tech detectors, didn't say anything. We've only got about 2 or 3 minutes left, Dr. Busby. You got cut off with talking about it's been found in Hawaii. And we know that the northern hemisphere has twice the radiation of the southern just from Chernobyl. I mean, how long is this going to be going on, and what do you think that the overall health effects will be?
I think the overall health effects will be very bad in Japan. I don't think the overall health effects will be quite so bad in the United States and in Europe. And I think the reason is because there's a very long way downwind of Japan, and there'll be a dilution of these particles. But make no mistake, these particles are already there. And so long as these this fissioning continues to take place, and the reactors are uncovered, then this stuff will get into the air, and it will continue to come to America, and it will come to Europe. And of course, it's cumulative. So the more of it that comes, the more of it it'll fall down onto the ground, and then it will continue to be resuspended. So the higher the probability will be that people will inhale them. So there will be some sort of effect. By which I mean there will be increases in cancer and leukemia and a whole range of diseases associated with.
So it'll
radiation.
tick up on the chart. Now, you do think the tent's a good idea because that'll keep some of the particulates down?
Yes, exactly. I think it's the only way that they can deal with it now is that they put a dome over it. The French have designed a dome to go over the Chernobyl reactor. Incidentally, the sarcophagus at the Chernobyl reactor is collapsing, and there's a huge proposal which is ongoing from the French to build a sort of sarcophagus over the sarcophagus. And this could be done for Fukushima, and I think the sooner the better, because at least that will keep these particles inside. It's the particles, this is the one message I have, it's the particles that are dangerous. It's inhalation that's dangerous. It's not external radiation. External radiation, gamma radiation, is not dangerous. Well, I mean, it is, but it's not anything like as dangerous as the inhalation of these radioactive alpha.
Well, it's the inhalation of the fallout. It's not just the overall background. That's why they have detectors that are showing normal level, and a little particle goes by and it goes off the chart. That's why we're seeing a lot of those reports. It's this Russian roulette of these particles.
You're right. It's the inhalation dose that is the problem. Absolutely, because that's not properly modeled by the ICRP, by the model that they're using in order to limit people's exposure. Well, you have to use the model of the European Committee on Radiation Risk, which accurately quantifies the health risk of exposure to these particles.
Well, you've done a great job, and obviously they want this story to go away, so they don't even have to even fix anything, and some of their policy people are just let it melt down forever, and that's just the way it is. And
it's not going to go away, Alex. It's not going to go away. People are going to die, and it's going to become perfectly obvious that this is happening. So the people who are saying this are going to have to keep their fingers crossed and run like hell before these people who are dying come and get them.
Yeah, what do you think is going to happen to Monbiot and others when the radiation?
I think Monbiot shot himself in the foot. Very few people believe him here. I mean, I've heard from many people in the Green movement that his credibility has been completely exploded as a result of what he's done.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. That's Dr. Chris Busby, and you can check out the key research and scientific facts at llrc.org. Thank you so much for spending time with us, Doctor.
Okay.
There he goes.